Can we please put an end to these ridiculous did you know segments that WWE has been doing lately? All these things are is just a lame excuse for them to stroke their own ego. Them bragging about SmackDown being the highest rated show in the history of My Network TV is like bragging about beating a eunuch in a pissing contest. My Network TV's market penetration is even lower than the CW's. Of course it was their highest rated show. You could air 2 hours of monkeys picking fleas off each other and it would be their highest rated show. And here's a fun fact. The final rating for that particular episode of SmackDown dipped to a 1.9. And their 18 to 49 demographics were down 29% from where they were last year. I don't see them bragging about that. Do you? Okay, I guess I have to retract some of the things I said last week about the pimping of the beautiful people, and then it's not done for any real reason other than to draw ratings. Apparently, there was a reason for all the stuff we saw last week, because as of this Impact, they now have a match of Bound for Glory. And I've criticized people recently for judging TNA too harshly when they do something that doesn't necessarily make sense, and here I went and fell into that trap myself last week. So, I'll try to be a little more mindful about that in the future. Unfortunately, it's a pretty big good news, bad news situation. The good news is that the beautiful people, ODB and Rhino, have pay-per-view spots. The bad news is that Kip James has a pay-per-view spot. Jesus. Talk about taking the good with the bad. I mean, plus, it feels a little out of whack because the beautiful people have been antagonizing Taylor Wilde forever, which is what led her buddy Rhino to get involved in this storyline. And now Rhino's in this match and Taylor isn't. So that makes for a pretty awkward matchup for this Sunday. I mean, the best we can hope for is that Kip James does nothing in this match except get gored through a table and then pinned by Rhino. Or, better yet, we can hope that on Sunday afternoon, Kip James comes down with a massive case of explosive diarrhea and gets taken off the show entirely. That would be the best case scenario at this point. Hey, have I mentioned that Kip James really sucks? Anyway, the go-home show before Bound for Glory was good, but if there's one criticism I have, it's that it should have been great. I mean, this didn't really feel like the last show before TNA's biggest pay-per-view of the year, you know what I mean? I mean, that big-time feel just wasn't there for some reason. And I'm not really sure why either, but I'll try to address that at some point in the future if it comes to me. Regardless of that problem, this was not a bad show. I think they capped off the Bound for Glory hype nicely. I mean, the 4 big matches have awesome build-up. The hype for the undercard is not as good. They kind of faltered a little bit there. But unlike WrestleMania 24, that doesn't mean that the undercard was thrown together at the last minute. And it really irritates me when I hear all these people complaining about how AJ Christian and Booker T don't have pay-per-view spots yet, and the X Division title match hasn't been announced. Because, once again, if you just use your head and think for a minute, it's pretty easy to see where they're going. Hey, Sheik Abdul-Bashir and Consequences Creed have a rivalry brewing since Bashir showed up in TNA. Maybe they're going to face off at Bound for Glory for the X Division title. Hey, AJ and Christian have a lot of tension between them lately with Booker T trying to get between them. Maybe the 3 of them are going to have a match of some kind. Come on, people. A complete idiot could see where they were going with these matchups. Have you become so accustomed to not using your God-given intelligence that you really need these things spelled out for you? The only thing I'll agree with is that the #1 contendership match for the X Division title should have taken place on the first Impact after No Surrender, because that would have then given them several weeks to promote the match. I mean, you knew what match they were going with, but waiting until the last minute to announce it officially was just stupid. That part I'll cop to. But I think it's a different case with the triple threat match because they had to get Christian's character to a certain place mentally before that match could be announced, and I think that happened about as organically as it could have been, so I was happy with that. In fact, even though that match was only announced, it wasn't even announced until this week, this probably has the most build-up out of any of the matches on the card when you look back at the whole history of the AJ-Christian relationship. It's not something that was just thrown together at the last minute to give these guys pay-per-view spots a la Batista Umaga at WrestleMania. And there's a lot of history between these guys, and to take their characters from where they were a year ago to where they are now is really quite a journey. So that's what's so great about long-term storytelling. When you've got 2 characters that have been through the ringer together for over a year like these two have, the match doesn't really need a lot of build-up to be able to tell a great story, because when you think about it, there's already a whole year of build-up. Anyway, I guess I kind of went off on a tangent there. Look, getting back on topic. Bound for Glory is in 2 days and change as of this recording, and there is no reason why any wrestling fan out there should not want to order this pay-per-view. This is as stacked a card as TNA has had in a long time. Let's go through it right now. This young versus old storyline has really taken on a life of its own, and right at the center of it is Samoa Joe and Sting. I love this main event. I know there's some criticism about Sting headlining again, and I was actually one of those critics myself at first, but I think they've really justified his spot on the show this year. And this is a dream match, and announced on Impact this week, there will be no rematch this time. So this is the one and only time we're ever going to see Samoa Joe and Sting for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. That definitely gives this match a really special feel. Cannot wait. Then we have the other main event. We got Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett. Mick Foley is special enforcer. I think it's really impressive how well they built this up with the limited time that they had. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's return was teased for a while before he came back officially, but this match has only been hyped for the last month and a half or so, and for the relatively small amount of time they had, they've really turned this into a really bitter personal rivalry. I mean, the announcers weren't just blowing smoke when they called this one of the most personal feuds in TNA history. That's all due to how it was set up, thanks in no small part to the work-shoot nature of this thing. Remember what I said about work-shoot angles? Well, this is an example of one being well executed and paying off. AJ Styles versus Christian Cage versus Booker T. This one's going to be awesome. AJ and Christian have a storied history, and over the last year, we've seen them go from leader and follower to bitter enemies, to uneasy allies, to friends, and now they're equals, with Booker T playing the instigator and trying to drive a wedge between them again. This is the sleeper of the card, could be the match of the night if it gets enough time. 4-way Monsters Ball match for the tag team titles. This one's been building for a while. All these teams have been involved with or feuded with each other in some way, shape, or form for months now. The Monsters Ball match is insane every year, and this one will be no different. Taylor Wilde versus Roxy versus Awesome Kong for the Knockouts title. The hype for this one was kind of sporadic. I think Gail Kim leaving when she did kind of hurt the build-up a little bit, because I'm pretty sure Taylor defending against Gail was the match that they were building toward originally. I'm, a little bummed that we're not going to get to see that match, but Taylor has great chemistry with Awesome Kong, just like Gail did, and Kong and Roxy had some terrific matches with each other in Shimmer, so you throw those three women together, and who knows what they could come up with. Sheik Abdul-Bashir versus Consequences Creed for the X Division Championship, another one that's been in the works for a while, even though it kind of tapered off in the last month. This is going to be the big test for Creed. If he can pull a great match out of Bashir on his own without another guy in there to help carry the action, then he deserves to be the champion. X Division Steel Asylum match. That thing speaks for itself. The first one was incredible, and if you think they're not going to try to top themselves on the biggest show of the year, then you're crazy. And finally, the Mixed Tag Bimbo Brawl match. Cross your fingers on the explosive diarrhea thing. Aside from that one debacle, this is an awesome card. Bound for Glory is going to kick ass. One of my viewers says they're going to be at the show, so watch for the Fool Killer 99 sign in the crowd. Order the pay-per-view. Talk to you soon.